Welcome to episode 50 of Casually Hardcore. This is a monster episode with both Avi and Vegan Pete from She Heals I Tank. As a note to viewers, this podcast does include some light profanity and is not recommended for children. So, if you are with your family, this might be one that you want to enjoy later. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy episode 50 of the Casually Hardcore podcast, and thank you all so much. So, let's do this thing.
I thought it was going to be mayonnaise, ketchup, and mustard.
He was on New York hot sauces. Deal with it, Texas boy. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Casually Hardcore podcast, episode 50, the first podcast of 2020. My name is Brian, and today I'm really happy to hopefully introduce you to the creators of the amazing She Heals I Tank podcast. We've got Avi and Vegan Pete. Thank you guys for making time. And also, you guys have a big milestone that you're celebrating this week with episode 200. If you guys have not seen or heard the She Heals I Tank podcast, it's incredible. I highly recommend it, and links will be in the description of this video when it goes up on YouTube. But guys, introduce yourself in case anybody who, as like in our community, hasn't heard of you guys. How did you get started? What do you guys like about podcasting? Because 200 is amazing.
Well, there's one thing we are. It's consistent. I will give us that. You had very kind words that I don't know if we've ever been described as amazing. But we are called She Heals I Tank, and the acronym for that is SHIT. We are known as the SHIT podcast. And it's pretty appropriate for much of the time, I would say. I'm Vegan Pete. My better half is my wife, Avi Ale. So husband and wife podcasting duo. Anything to add to that?
I was like, are you just going to talk for me? That's cool. Pete got into, it was his idea to start the podcast, and he asked if I would do it with him, and I said, sure, sounds like fun. I'm the chatty one in most scenarios, so it was, when we first start, it's definitely like a different dynamic to where we've gotten to now, so it's been kind of fun to see that growth. And I do know that the first year of podcasting, we did not miss a single week. Pete refused to miss a single week.
Even had pre-recorded ones to have out there when we were on vacation.
Yeah. And now at least I'm kind of grateful that now he's like, it's okay. We can miss for New Year's. We can miss for, Christmas. And so
yeah, people know we're going to come back because we have a backlog. It's like, hey guys, welcome to my weekly podcast. This is episode 1. And then it was like, where's 2? Like, yeah, he said but weekly.
I suppose the origin of it was, though, my day job is in sales and it's not that creative. I was missing like a creative part of my life. I really enjoyed Final Fantasy XIV, wanted to do some sort of content creation for it, but I have never done like any Photoshop or video editing or anything like that. And I figured I don't know if it's going to be easy, but something that seemed approachable to me was podcasting over trying to learn Illustrator or any sort of video editing software. And I was also a big fan of the podcast Limit Break Radio, and they weren't quite talking about the topics I wanted to talk about. Like I enjoyed it and everything like that, but I felt like there was a space for the topics I wanted to talk about.
So go ahead.
Like how much he hates PvP in Final Fantasy XIV.
I say I love PvP, just not in this game.
Ongoing theme.
What is your PvP game, Pete?
Nothing right now, but it was Dark Age of Camelot. That was my first MMO, the one that I always have fond memories of. And that was some 3-sided PvP, which I thought I was going to love in Final Fantasy, but it doesn't have any staying power for me. It's over in 15 minutes, one match, nothing is persistent. So it doesn't really seem like you ever really accomplish anything in it other than going for the new mount.
Yeah, and that's why it dies.
Yeah.
So if you guys aren't aware, we've divided the podcast room up. Specifically, we've got Gingers on the left, and we've got salespeople on the right. So, Avi, I don't know what you do, so I'm assuming that you're not in sales, but you could be.
I'm in IT.
Oh, really? This is great. Me too. So this is perfect, guys. Like, we've got the cool people on the left, like I said, and the normies on the right. So
armies.
So, left or stage left?
I don't know. Like, I would say like on my left how it's being viewed. I don't know how people are going to interpret that. So as far as it goes, they can interpret anything they want. So this podcast, we've got it on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, wherever pretty much podcasts can be found. Our last episode, we had Taylor Scroll talking about kind of the games of the year, and we kind of ranked them. And it turns out like a lot of the ones that were up for nom aren't ones that we played. What a shocker. Like, guys who love MMOs don't play every game that comes out. What a shocker. Hard. But it was fun. It was a really good show. You guys should check it out. Also, we want to thank our partnership with Exit Lag. If you guys are having any kind of lag issues with your game, you should check out the link below. Get 3 free days. Use the code DOWORK for 20% off. It works really great. I've been using it to play Korean MMOs, Lost Ark, which seems lost to time. I don't know if that's ever.
You want to play on a data center that's not on your continent for any game. Latency can be an issue.
So this show, just kind of give everybody a little heads up, editor's note. I'm drinking. This is a after 5 o'clock show, and while we typically try to keep it safe, there might be some profane language. So if you're watching with your family and your kids, I can't promise. I'm going to try my best to edit it out, but if it doesn't sound natural, just note that this might be a podcast that you watch in adult time.
You mean like the fact that our acronym is shit?
It's like, for me, that's funny because I was like, like it is what it is. That's a great acronym. How did you come up with the name?
I wanted something that would stand out, something that would have a little bit of comedic element to it like that. So I definitely was looking for what the acronym spelled. And then also I'm like, I know Final Fantasy, I hope it lasts a really long time, but who knows how long it will last.
Right.
I wanted something that wasn't specific to Final Fantasy, and this is something that could be used for basically any MMO.
Yeah. Does anybody ever ask you for like advice on how to get started?
Yeah. And I think my biggest piece of advice is just do it. Because there was definitely a time when I was doing research on different mics and different setups. And then eventually I just got one USB mic, set it up in between us, and just did the damn thing.
It was rough.
And just learned from there.
Learning by fire. I think it's some of the best, because often we'll get people like, hey, how do we create? How do we do? And it's like, there's like simple little advice, but the best thing is to start, because you're going to get over that insecurity that we all have.
Yeah.
We didn't start doing YouTube till 3 years, but I was making it like writing up personal guides for players on the controller for years. I was just like, hey, do this. And I was like, okay, what are you playing? And I'd write this long thing up. It never was public. I was tailoring it, and somebody was like, and eventually we're like, well, and it turns out there's people are interested in that. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, so that was actually my hold up, was assuming that
not very scalable.
Like controller guides.
This is Pete's controller guide. I will get to Avi's controller guide next week. Unfortunately, you can check your email. You are number 49,000. But just hold out at one a week. I will get to you.
But that's good, like from your naming convention, because that's one of the things people are like, oh, I'm thinking about making a Final Fantasy XIV channel. I go, great. Don't name yourself Final Fantasy XIV. It's a 10-year-old MMO.
Yep. It's
a 10-year-old MMO. It's going great. I hope it goes on for a long time. But it's 10 years. Look at it. Like 11's coming up on 20. So like we do know they will support this stuff.
That makes me feel old.
It's not an old feeling. It's an exciting feeling for me.
11 being 20 makes me feel old. I played 11 when it was brand new.
What's the alternative, Avi? The alternative's not pretty. I would rather get old than the alternative.
No, but 20's kind of a number for me right now.
Okay. I'm just telling you, like I said in the pre-show, your skin looks great. Like, I wouldn't worry about it. As I flirt with Avi, we've got Yoshi-P's New Year's greetings. This is something that this is something very dear to me, like his New Year's letter. Yeah. I want to know about, before we kind of talk about what he said, because there's some really cool things in it. Like, what is your experience with 14? Because you said you started podcasting. When did that start? Like, when did you come into 14? What brought you into this game? Because that's going to help me understand the context of this letter for y'all.
Sure. I had never played any Final Fantasy game at all in my life. And I knew she had played a couple of them. So I was just browsing the PlayStation Store one time, and they had the demo for 14 on there. So I downloaded it so she could play it. She was running her own business at the time, so had some weird hours, and she was able to play that. And then when she actually started really getting into it, and it was something she wanted to play, then I played as well, because no MMO had ever held my attention like Dark Age of Camelot did way back when. And this is the only one that's ever held it since. So that's why I started playing. Why did you stick with it?
Well, and then, so we had it only on the PS4. We had one PS4.
Yeah.
And we were like, then he started playing. I was like, nah, bitch. I already started.
You're
like,
good.
We can't do this. We have to share this. And then he brought out his gaming PC that he had built, and then he decided he wanted to build himself another one. So at one point I was PS4 and he was on his gaming PC, and then he built a new one and I took the old one, and it just kind of became this project that like we both played together, and we'd never actually played any video games together really before 14. And at the time, it was when my business was actually ending. So I was very poor and I had very, very weird hours. I was working really hard for not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
that's the life of a business owner.
Yeah. MMOs give you that sense of security and control and socialization.
Yeah.
That whenever you're dealing with those kind of elements, it helps you like feel grounded. And so Final Fantasy XIV helped me get through the loss of my business essentially.
Yeah.
And that's why I really stuck with it at the time. It came to me. He bought that for me at like the perfect moment in my life. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Owning a business is a very isolating experience because I'm going to guess, I don't know if you're the same way, but it's like when anybody asks you, how's it going? You have to respond, great.
Yes.
It's going great.
My business, I was a baker. You listen to I made a craft beer bakery. So everything was baked with craft beer, and I worked with local breweries, and my business was called Pub Cakes. I'm just saying this because then people would see me out in town, and that essentially became my name. So then I was, hey, Pub Cakes. And so everyone would ask. And then even when the business stopped for years.
What happened?
Hey, Pub Cakes. And so I didn't want to go out, and I didn't want to, you didn't want to have to answer those questions. And so Final Fantasy XIV was a place where I didn't have to.
Yeah. Chris,
we started the podcast and told everyone she did it. And you can go watch, she was on Cupcake Wars. You can go watch that episode on Netflix and stuff like that.
Not on Netflix
anymore. Not on Netflix anymore?
Oh, man. Stream Wars, man. They're always buying up that content and selling it. Chris joined in 2.0. Chris, I'm gonna let you kind of dive into the New Year's greeting, because for each one of us here, like I really just got a major feeling. This letter means something different for each one of us. Avi's talking about like the socialization, and there's an emotion connection to it. Chris, walk us through the letter. Let's talk about that, and then let's dive into our big topic.
So it's fairly short. It's pretty short and to the point, even by letter from Yoshi-P standpoint. He basically said that, he first acknowledged the importance of Shadowbringers. So he's exactly where we are as a player base. Shadowbringers is possibly going to be one of the more instrumental and more impactful expansions you'll ever play in any game ever. And so I think for Yoshi-P to open up by saying 2019 was something to be cherished is really, it says that they're just as aware as we are. They don't think this is just another game right now.
It's not.
And so he says a big thank you. And then he says like it's given him a chance to travel more, and he's been taking part in interviews, and really it's given him more of a pulse, which I think is something that you see in a lot of games where people say like, oh, the devs don't listen. And like he just says, he has a feel for how big the community is, that it's something much larger than him, talking about like the orchestral concert and all that. And then the part of it where I'm starting to kind of lace my opinions in here, but the part of it that really spoke to me was the next section. So he says, although everyone in the development operations teams has been taking time off over the new year, the 5.x series is proceeding at pace. The 5.18 was released at the end of the year. 5.2 now is almost ready. From the start of the year, we'll be carrying out adjustments and bugs. And like, there's just something about how matter of fact that they've been taking time off, which is something that I was concerned about with the pace of this game. but that like the game isn't slowing down, because I think I was worried it's like, well, is it slowing down because 14 is going to come to an end and we're going to launch another MMO? Or are they going to just burn themselves into the ground because they can't continue this pace forever? And so I think it's a really surgical part of this letter, and I think it really puts the balance really well. And then he mentions that 5.2 and 5.3, therefore, they're going to form this one chapter. And then he starts to play his little bit of a game. So he says that a bizarre note on my desk, it says, "For what are warriors of light but earnest souls of good intent, resolved to do that which is right, regardless of the consequence." And
that gives me chills. Like, I just get chills when I read that.
He puts, is this some sort of prophecy? Anytime he asks a question mark, like at anything, just as a general with Yoshi-P, the answer is yes. Like anytime he says, like, I don't know, maybe if players worked on Ishgard, we'll get housing. It's like, well, he's going to have to give us housing now because he's never not answered one of those questions yet. And then he says that it's the 10th year since he first became involved in the project. And so as they step into a new decade, you can be sure there will be a fan fest, and you can be sure we're off to more adventures. But it's just a really, it's letter on its own. I think if you're brand new to the game this month, it probably doesn't mean a lot, because it just says like, hey, it's been going 10 years, things are going great, they're going to continue to go great, it's awesome. But I think as a player, watching the transformation this game has gone through, it spoke to me a lot because I came from WoW. And so the communication here is just so much more personal. The fact that it comes directly from him, and the fact that it feels so heartfelt, and the fact that he's taken the time to go around and give interviews. And maybe I'm biased because I got to be at one of those interviews, but it really feels like he cares. And it just reminds you that this game is made by people. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but it just reminds you that this is like a real living thing, and we're part of it and they're part of it. And it's a special game.
Avi and Pete, what did you read when you read this? Like, what did anything stand out to you? Did anything get you excited? Did anything speak to the 10 years that Yoshi-P's been working on this project for either of you?
I felt like he came across to me as much more proud in this one than in previous ones, and I think that's because of the success of Shadowbringers. And I know I'm not trying to like write it off in that simplicity, but like Shadowbringers was so emotional for everyone involved. Like I can't imagine you could write and work on a story and not feel just feel. And so I feel like it brought the creation of the game, the development of the game, to a whole other level for all of them. And I really hope that continues, because it obviously, any art, any form of art, if you can bring that level of passion to it just improves it tenfold.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was kind of like, I'm so proud that everyone sees what I see, and I'm so grateful now. Like it's like the 10 years we're building to that, like, not that that's the end, I'm not saying that, but like this is a high point for everyone, for all of us, for him, for the development team, for everybody.
Pete?
Yeah, I've always seen, or always thought Yoshi-P was very sincere in everything that he says. You can really tell he loves the game, cares about what people think of the game. He wants everyone to have fun playing it. But just to give a little bit of a different perspective as well, something that stood out to me was, I forget the exact wording, but they said patches 5.2 and 5.3 were going to be like half of a chapter, and that kind of worries me a little bit. I'm like, can't we get like a full chapter in one patch and not have to split that up? Because he's related it to TV before as well. Like a season of TV is an expansion, and then like every patch is a new episode. It's like, are we getting a full episode, or are you like breaking that in half? And just pairing that with the news that we're only going to start getting one dungeon per patch. It's like, I know that the dev team are people and everyone needs their breaks, but you can't deny that it's been like a steady decline, like in the amount of dungeons that we've been getting since A Realm Reborn.
Yeah.
And even though I think the quality in general has gone up, I can definitely see the critique that it seems like we're getting less. especially since some of the stuff that they've given us instead, like Eureka and Diadem, haven't been the most well-received pieces of content.
Yeah, it's been that way since ARR. Like Chris has said it, that ARR was the golden handcuffs. Like when you look at, oh yeah, remember when we got 3 dungeons per patch and we got all these different beast tribes, and it's like they really delivered with ARR. And since then, yes, it's been and the question is why. And that's kind of where, like we were talking in the pre-show about the kind of the cheese method. Like there is a lot of technical debt that the game has, and a lot of people might not understand the concept of technical debt. I don't want this conversation to be about that, but it's that, like, if the dev team can, I think they will. And what for me speaks evidence to that is that they are adding hairstyles and glasses and headgear to Hrothgar and Vera. Well, they as they can. Like Vera can wear glasses. They showed the picture.
Right, but have we gotten anything new since since Shadowbringers?
As a glamour junkie,
Mm-hmm.
and I love the Viera because they have my nose. Honestly, that's the reason. Like, I have a bunny nose, and a friend actually said, "You need this nose. That's your nose." But I also put a lot of effort into collecting a lot of the hairstyles.
Yeah.
In the game. And now I can't use any of those. And if they were slowly adding some of those hairstyles as an available option for the Viera, then I wouldn't complain. But we haven't gotten anything but the base ones you start with. And so it's kind of, and some of them I spent money on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have Yshtola's Heavensward outfit. I love that hair, and sorry.
Right.
Do you guys think the total amount of content we get per patch is less?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it is less. I don't think we're getting any.
When you factor for things like the fact that, like, during ARR we didn't have Beast Dungeon, during ARR we didn't have Blue Mage, during ARR the relic grind was fairly simple compared to something as large as Eureka. Whether or not you like those pieces of content isn't the point. Do you feel that the amount of work being done is less?
No.
Oh, not the amount of work.
Yeah, I don't think the amount of that'd be really hard to say for sure. But as I think the actual content that we're getting is less, even if like you account for all the stuff that maybe I didn't like the most. I mean, we went from 3 dungeons a patch to now 1.
I'm excited about the 1 dungeon per patch. Like, it was, for me, it was inevitable. I wish they gave us a heads up more rather than saying, hey, 5.2, and by the way, 1 dungeon. Because one of the things that I think, if you look at Shadowbringers as art, it's nailed it. If you look at Shadowbringers as marketing, there's been more unnecessary, in my mind, in my opinion, drama around it, around male Vera, around, like, it's just like, okay. And like, I can tell people male Vera isn't happening, at least not anytime soon. And it doesn't matter because, when it doesn't happen, people are still going to have that expectation. And despite me saying that, hey, Vera was coming, and they were telling me like I was crazy, and then they were saying, and then I said, by the way, Mel Vera is not happening, and they're like, oh no, it is, and then they're mad. It's like that could have been handled marketing wise so much better because they gave us months of speculation and anticipation as opposed to saying, hey, we've got 2 races, and they're going to be gender locked. Like, okay, end of story. We can talk about why, and Yoshi-P gave a great reason, a great talk about it. I think for me, like the struggle I have with the game, and one of the reasons why I'm still playing the game, is because I've always seen an amazing amount of potential in the game. So for me, this is 10 years since I decided I was going to keep playing 14. We started a podcast at E3, 2009, covered it all the way. 1.0 came out, we played it. And it was like always kind of like, is there going to be some kind of miracle patch? Because there was some major performance issues, even playing in the beta. And, Yoshi-P gets announced that he's taken over. Huh? What's happening here? Okay. Let's go. They've announced free to play right now. Okay. Yoshi-P's first actual introduction to the entire player base was his New Year's greetings.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. His first formal address. So I woke up in Arkansas because we were staying at my sister's for the holiday, just like hanging out. And I woke up to that, and it was then I was like, okay, let's do this, Yoshi-P, because his words were so profound. And so for me, this is a real surreal moment. And And for me, like, the love I have for 14 is sometimes balanced and struggles with my technical and professional skill of being an engineer, leading agile teams, working with like delivering product on and trying to figure out the backlog, because that's like always changing and behind the scenes. And what Yoshi-P did, and this is why I think it's so critical, because Shadowbringers isn't the best Final Fantasy MMO. I would argue it's perhaps the best Final Fantasy game that has released, at least in the last 10 years.
100%.
We can argue tactics all day, and I go back and forth. 6 is also real high on my list. The beauty of the Final Fantasy franchise is how everybody has a different order. There isn't a set order. There isn't a definitive, here is the order of best Final Fantasies. Chris's is 10. What's y'all's, Vegan Pete, you're recently playing through 8 right now.
Yeah, so after we started the podcast for 14 and everything, I kind of wanted to get what some of the references in 14 actually were, because I didn't get anything from the tactics raid that was introduced to Final Fantasy. So I was actually, that raid didn't like impress me that much because it had absolutely zero nostalgia for me at all. So I know some people really loved it because the characters and that, and then to me I was like, that's kind of just another 24-man raid personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now I've gone back and started playing some of the other Final Fantasies. I started with 10 because I asked people what was your favorite, and it seemed like 10 had the most votes out of the people I asked anyways. That's no sort of scientific ranking or anything like that. So I started with 10 and then I went to 9. I beat both of those and now I'm on 8. So out of the ones that I've beaten, I like 10 better than 9. And so far, I think I actually like 8 a little bit more than 9.
I want to follow up with Avi just real quick, but are you going to play the original 7 or are you going to hold out for the remake? Pete.
That's for you. Oh, me?
Yeah, I was going to get Avi's list here in a second. I was just curious because you've been going 10, 9, 8.
He's going
the next number is 7, and it's like, well, you have an option now. Like, you can play the original or you can play the remake.
I think unless I get to it really quickly, because I only play once a week, that's all I have time for, the classic Final Fantasy. If I get to it and I still have a lot of time before the remake comes out, then I'll play the original. But if the remake is out, I'm just going to play that.
Yeah. Not too much longer now. Avi, how about you?
So mine is 10. I was one of those voices saying 10, 10, 10. I actually grew up in a Mario household and in a multiplayer game household. So I didn't get to play Final Fantasy games when I was a kid because you were not allowed to hog the console for that long. So it was a lot of Mario Kart. It was a lot of, 007. It was stuff like that where you had to share. So I didn't get to play 10 or Final Fantasy until I was an adult and had my own console. So I played 10, I played X2, I played 11. I tried to play 12, but I just didn't love the story because there was the romance and it just 10 had. And then, and I watched Pete play 15 and that was too brotastic for me. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay.
Relate to any of them. But I love 14. So that's obviously, but I did want to say actually, so you're going back to what you were saying about how Shadowbringers is the best Final Fantasy.
Yeah. We
actually did have someone in our Discord comment that Shadowbringers is the best single player JRPG.
It is.
That's how
the mistake that people make is they
considered for it.
Well, right. But the mistake people make is they assume Final Fantasy XIV is an MMO and it's a Final Fantasy game first. And it happens to have MMO elements.
That's a wonderful way to describe it.
Yeah. And this is where I see it. And a lot of people run into this game and then they get frustrated. A lot of people love it. Like you see the people who love it. This is how they play the game. They play the expansion and then they take a break. And then a couple of months prior to 6.0, they're going to return. They're going to get caught up on the story. They're going to play the expansion and they're going to repeat that. And that's how they do it. I've known a lot of them because that is how they play the game. And then for people like us, like it offers so much more to do once you've played Final Fantasy 14. And
but you have to play all of it. That's what's so hard. And well, I actually want to talk on this because I have, so every Thursday I stream with my friend Hyperpixie Gaming. We stream together. She is an ESO streamer and I'm a Final Fantasy XIV streamer, but she's my best friend. And you obviously want your best friend to play your game.
Absolutely.
So every Thursday we do what we call Greenleaf Gaming stream, and we play ESO together, and she teaches me and I'm an idiot. And then we play 14 and I teach her and she gets to be the idiot. And it's been really, really interesting because ESO is an MMO. Hands down, it's got level syncing. You can go into dungeons no matter what level you are. You can go into any content no matter where you are in the game. There's no walls unless it's like you have to buy the expansion. That's the only wall. You don't have to level to get to it. And so it has been really difficult for her to understand why she can't do this other content. And to say it as it's a Final Fantasy game that happens to be an MMO, I think for someone like that, coming from that game would make a lot more sense.
I said that. Go ahead.
Call Greenleafs idiots?
I'm a Greenleaf. That's what I just said.
ESO is the purest theme park MMO out there. Like there is no MMO out there. I would say WoW was competitive with it until recent expansions where we started to add features, like in the current one where we have a war campaign that you have to go through these interactive cinematics. It feels like the best way I've described it to 14 players is it's just a miniature MSQ, like straight up, and you have to do it, and there's content locks behind it. So whether you like it or not, you have to do it. And so like ESO is the theme park. Like if they come out with a trailer, or if you see an old trailer and you're like, wow, I really want to do that content, you can log in and walk straight to that ride and ride it and then log out.
Yep.
Now we're going to get into kind of our hopes for 14 in 2020. So definitely hype there, but obviously this is kind of a big topic that is on my list, because I remember I got so much "She Heals, I Tank" acronym for stating that years ago. I go, you got to think of 14 as a Final Fantasy game first, and you're going to set the right expectations. And it's only been moving further and further in that direction, and that's, people would argue like, oh, it's an MMO first, and then you're like, well, why am I not playing it with other people? And that's where you see people get frustrated by the game themselves. And like, we can say whether it's right or wrong. My current worldview about it is that it's a technological thing. And when you look at the MMOs that have been announced and are coming out over 2020 and the next 10 years, pretty much they're all like labeling themselves as sandbox MMOs. A return to the open world, a return to, and what's really kind of a neat thing, because I tweeted this out today and people were like, like, oh my God, what are you saying? Fortnite is more of an MMO than WoW and Final Fantasy XIV. Not MMORPG. Like, let's get real. But MMO, like, it's like, and you can put, like 200 people in an instance in 14. Okay. Like, we got you there. But we don't. There's like, I've never seen 200 people in an instance outside of like patch day on like, here's the quest, right? That
First
we're all
day
going
of Restoration of Ishgard, maybe.
I was just gonna say
Restoration. Well, that's why like we had Mioni on the podcast, and I was like, the Restoration of Ishgard is the first real MMO piece of content that Shadowbringers added. Because it's like, okay,
it was over in a week.
Well, yeah, people still do it. Like, it's meant to be done, and people who are still doing it, we're all making progress, baby. Like,
but
I'm hesitant to say it's over. I'm hesitant to say it's over because I said that I understood Eureka, and then out of this very predictable egg blew up Baldesian Arsenal. And I was like, oh crap, I didn't understand that at all. So like, I want Ishgard to turn into something different. Okay. But right now it does feel very flat, but like Yoshi-P has already said, like, hold your breath like a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't mean it was over, but I'm like, this first step is over.
Oh, yeah, very bad.
I really wish that would have lasted like a month and a half before we finished it.
I think it will. I think it'll even out. Go ahead, Avi, sorry.
No, I don't craft, and I was really excited for Restoration of Ishgard, and that actually got me hyped again for Final Fantasy, because like I said, I've been kind of burnt out on the game a bit, and I don't have the time to play like a lot of people do, and it was done, and I was like, I got to be a part of it for 2 days, maybe like 2 after work days. Yeah. And then I was like, well, I don't want to sit here and just grind. Yeah. I wanted to be a part of this, and now I'm leveling for something I won't do anything with once it's leveled. I'll just go, hey, Beba, will you craft me that thing? Because you got all your crafters leveled. Like, I'm not going to do it.
And when they first announced it and how they said it was going to be like server specific, I was really excited for like the server race as well. And then since people could just transfer servers, like it had no meaning after that.
Absolutely.
Server race wise, it's like, well, everyone just went to one server and finished it there, and then just followed the fate around to get the XP.
After drinking these White Claws, I keep muting you guys and not actually the stream. And I was like, oh, they can still hear me going.
I didn't even notice.
Well, yeah, because I kept muting y'all. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna mute because it's coming through here. So that's so funny. I do want to highlight a comment Chili using. I think I named them Super Balls as a part of our Twitch, like that, just channel currency. Says that I still see loads of people on Fates and Hunt Trains. And I would ask, what is loads? Like, what does that mean? Like, how many people are you seeing? Because I'm going to tell you guys a number, and I'm curious as your reaction. Imagine 5,000 people. Imagine 10,000 people. That's what's coming. And that's why I think MMO is going to be a whole different ballgame the next decade. We saw over the last decade, it's not a Final Fantasy thing. A lot of people are like, think that I'm like, hey, no, Final Fantasy is an MMO. No, guess what? Like, WoW isn't a 5 or 4 man instance content. Like, that's not MMO. That's not massive. That's, that's Diablo.
So PvP feels pretty big, but it's nothing compared to what technology advancements like Google Stadia mean for the industry. Well, and whether or not Stadia succeeds or fails, whether or not you like Stadia, has not the advancement, right? The discovery of that technology is a game changer.
Yeah. And, so like I'm thinking where we see like how MMOs over the last decade have gotten smaller and more tailored, the other technology that's right on the horizon that's going to blow people away is AI as it relates to the MMO. And if anybody here has played Forza, and anybody, like, I even kind of talked a little bit about this, about like with even Smash Brothers, with training your amiibo fighter, like we're going to be training these things so that in and of itself, it might not even feel like we're alone. Imagine like all of us, we all have jobs. I'm late. We're all going to do a raid together, but I'm off work. I'm late. Imagine if my AI that I've trained is going to play like me. I'm sorry. Occasionally I have moments of brilliance, and maybe that would be the night for the bot. But like, there's just so many things in technologies where, like, over the last decade, the problem is like, how do we get these people with real lives and less time? Well, let's get matchmaking in there. Let's do these things, and we got to make it faster. But that's going to be a thing of the past, because we're going to have convenience, but we're not going to have to lose scale. And that's going to be something that truly, I think, will revolutionize like the MMORPG over the next decade. But that's just my piece on it, because I was just like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for what that means for this genre that I love immensely.
Did you ever read any like MMO fantasy novels or anything like that?
No,
by chance?
No.
Oh, because
any good ones that you recommend?
Oh yeah, Awaken Online is incredible. There's a whole series like it makes you want to play that game, even though it's not really a game. But the reason I brought it up is because in one of the books, and it's always like a virtual reality kind of thing where it's like the person is in the game and their avatar is what you're getting the story from. But there actually was one book, I don't even know how old it was, but it did that exact same thing. It brought that up, that when you're not logged into the game, there's an AI that will continue to walk around and be you essentially in the game.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool now to like something I read in like a total fiction is actually going to be something implemented.
Well, I can't wait until I get that message in Discord from my static where they're like, yeah, we're replacing you with your AI.
Yeah.
Sorry,
don't show up tonight, dude. No thanks. Well, what it is that when I look at the drawbacks, like I think a lot of people haven't connected the dots, and maybe this is me just being presumptive. But when the number of complaints, when we talk about the cheese methodology, when we talk about the issues, all the issues that I have heard from the multiplayer aspect, all have one thing in common, and it's Duty Finder. It's matchmaking. Why can't Blue Mage do X? Well, matchmaking. Like all the little things outside of the race and the glamour, and you're not getting your hairstyles. Like that's a different subject. But beyond glamour and appearance, it's matchmaking. And when you look at other games and how they've done it over the last just couple years, some of the things that people hate and at the same time there's a great appreciation for is things that aren't necessarily easy. Hey, can we get harder dungeons? Sure, but no matchmaking, because if it's too hard, people gonna bounce, and then you're gonna be mad. It's not, and then you're gonna complain like, hey, can we get better dungeons, and can people not suck? Like, that's a bigger ask than harder dungeons.
Yeah.
And so when we're all of a sudden, it's like, and then they introduce trust. Well, now I'm playing alone. Imagine though, like if we could mix and match trust, like okay, Brian's late. Let's all go. We're gonna bring his little bot. Maybe make it not as good as me, please. Don't make it better than me. So it's like I can play. Otherwise, at some point, you're like, "What? Let's watch our bots play." We go.
That would happen.
Yeah, it's like
everyone's like his bot actually moves out of the AOE.
Oh my god, he's better. But
right.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So let's shift the focus right now to 2020, because we've got 5.2, 5.3, which apparently is like the other times that they've done kind of a two-parter or things that two halves of a whole is usually in the last patch. You have a kind of starter and then you have the end. So hopefully it's both have a lot of meat. Hopefully when he says that, it's both meat.
The phrase, just to let you know, the exact words here are to bring a close to the critically acclaimed Shadowbringers. Patches 5.2 and 5.3 form two halves of a single chapter.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what they usually do, right? Because like 0.4 and 0.5 is usually like setting up the next expansion.
It's that close word, right? So it's not a part 1 and part 2 mid-season. It's that finale type word in there that tells me they're setting up for a really big 6.0 and they need more time to set it up. So they need 0.4 and 0.5 to set us up, in which case they'd have to drastically change the format, because our raids are always 3-part raids. Like we have such a pattern that we could sit in here right now, we could pause this podcast, and as a group of 4, we could pre-record our reactions to the next set of live letters.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, guys, how excited are you guys? We're getting another trial. Like we already know 90% of what's in every live letter for an entire cycle.
Yeah.
So like, does that phrase mean that they're going to change the pattern, or am I just excited about the thought of the pattern changing?
I was going to say, is that something that excites you, or would you be disappointed?
I don't know if the pattern changes that much, because I feel that's what 0.4 and 0.5 usually are for.
Yeah, you're right, Pete. 4 and 5.
Because the raid doesn't necessarily have that much to do with the MSQ.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that they're going to tie it more in? Like, we're doing stuff out in the world this time. Do you guys think it'll just be totally freestanding?
I think from this expansion, one of the things I really actually appreciated, I feel like both raids are baked into the world
I feel like
more.
They are a little bit closer, but they're not that far into it where they can't wrap everything up and just kind of.
I don't want it to feel rushed.
Yeah.
I that's my big thing actually, is the story has been so wonderful, and I don't want them to be like, and
done.
Game of Thrones final season. Like, I don't want that to happen. I don't want, we have to hit A, B, C, and D. Who cares how we get there? Like, just please keep the emotion for it. I'm a big advocate. I always want them to kill characters, because when you kill a character, it makes me feel. And I don't like it when stories create characters for the purpose of
murdering
dying.
you.
Yeah.
Moon
like, let me get a little attached to this one. Yeah.
Moon
Exactly. I read too much fantasy and watch too much fantasy to go, you're going to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. I'm not attached to you because I know why you're here.
I have this intricate backstory with these characters, and I've never been spoken of until today.
Did you think that Y'shtola should have stayed dead?
Yeah, hands down.
Yep.
She's done it before.
In what
Nanamo,
part?
I know people gonna hate me for that. Nanamo's story would have been much stronger if she'd have stayed dead. It just weakens your storytelling.
It would have been stronger if she stayed dead, because she's not in any of this.
Right? Why bring them back and not use them?
How would you have felt if she died and then Thancred died?
If Y'shtola died and then Thancred died?
Back to back. In the 5.0 series, we had an opportunity for Thancred to die, and we had an opportunity for Y'shtola to die. How would you have felt if we'd gotten to the end of the 5.0 story and we'd lost two
I actually hope
main
Thancred
characters?
dies.
Yeah, I could do without Thancred lately.
The main enough player that people would be upset by it, and it would be juicy and meaty enough that people would be upset by Thancred's death, but that the story going forward wouldn't really be that impactful. Like, Pete and I actually had a conversation where, what if some of the characters choose to stay on the first? Wouldn't it be amazing? And in doing so, they actually die in our world, but their souls
right, but their souls are still ghosty McGhosterson over there on the
right,
first.
and he chooses to continue there and essentially die on our world to stay with Reen.
If we do the rejoining, I bet that's a reason they bring him back. No one's truly dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I had to pick somebody to kill,
live long enough to see that.
Yeah, this is fun because I'm gonna pick somebody to kill now. Cryo, not a fan. I mean, she's awesome. They mess with her, all that cool stuff, but I don't know. Like I
feel like she has to do something more important before she would die. Otherwise, I don't think it would have that much impact for people as of right now.
I love her voice.
Oh yeah.
And her quote.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's just the character that's like, we have had significant deaths, but we haven't had one in a while, And it's like, I pause because I know the Emmett Selk is in a villain crowd, is out there going like, no, we lost Emmett, and honestly,
but that's why Shadowbringers is good.
Oh yeah, well, Emmett Selk, in my opinion, is the quintessential and best written villain that we've had in this game to date, because the annoying thing about it is that my always held a belief is that the best villains are the ones that are righteous in their indignation, that they actually are trying to achieve a good, but in their twisted sense of it, unfortunately, these horrible things have to happen. And that's where, like with Emmett Selk, like when his line was like 1,000 years. Like you talk about a guy who's probably, in his opinion, tried everything under the sun. Like that's just how I read him.
Yeah.
And having
tried our method.
Yeah, and having lost love after, it's like, imagine like we only get one, but it's like, oh, every 1,000, like every 100 years, I have to say goodbye to one of these people that I love. And then all of a sudden being told or having the idea that you can fix it. And then all of a sudden, you're not a genocidal maniac at all. Guys, when I fix all of this horrible stuff will be undone. Maybe you'll even be alive. I don't know. But it's that, I can solve this problem, but it's going to come at a great cost. And maybe I'm the hero of the story and therefore the only person who can deliver on this promise, because for some reason I, among two other people, are unsundered, and then the true villain in the case is Heidelin, but we'll see.
I do think in Shadowbringers and the patch that we've had so far, they do a really good job of making you really think like there really isn't that much difference between what we're doing and what Emmett Selk is trying to achieve. We've both done a lot of really bad shit in our lives.
Yeah.
We've killed a lot of beastmen.
Well, and it's because, and then you think about it,
that we call them beastmen.
Well, right, and then the Empire thinks of us as that.
Yeah,
ignorant savages.
Beastmen have cultures, religions, languages. Why are they deemed so much less than us that it is just not even worth calling them a whole race?
Inviting them into the fold.
Reflection on society, though, with that.
Yeah.
I actually do, and I also think that we are essentially beastmen to Emmett Selk. He said that we're not whole souls.
We're not
people.
Right. He's removed our personhood, and that's something we've seen time and time again throughout human history. So this Shadowbringer story was such a real story.
And even his New Year's message, where it was like, we're gonna do whatever is right, regardless of the consequence.
And that could also be, be translated a couple different ways. Like, there's right. And then essentially you have to look at it and saying like, yeah, this is the right thing. And the consequence could be self-sacrifice, the hero's journey of, I'm going to make the right call. And ideally I suffer and nobody else has to.
That's boring though.
Well, not really.
That's good guy. I like gray good guy. I don't want white good guy, black good guy. I want the gray in the middle. Where you have to sacrifice those you love for the greater good. That's a harder decision. It's easier to sacrifice yourself than it is to sacrifice others for a good person, I'll say. So I feel like
because then you go on the chaotic neutral, and then it's easier to sacrifice others because it's all right, what are you? Yeah. But you have to justify that as from a psychological perspective. You have to think that you are either ordained for this. You are the only one who can. There's a sense that you have to take on this mantra, otherwise it's impossible, because your psyche would break at some point when you like, oh my God, like I'm the monster I'm fighting.
That would be, see, I was actually kind of hoping that that's what you are, you will become the Warrior of Darkness. Like that's what I was hoping like the story would kind of take the Warrior of Light with. Like I'm not complaining about Shadowbringers, but we never were a dark warrior.
Yeah, that didn't really hit.
Like
we were still the Warrior of Light. We were just bringing about light in regards. Like it's like, what is, you know, our definition of light here? It turns out it's the same thing that we've always been, only, you know, like it's taken to a certain, like it's interesting when you talk about the astral and the umbral attunements to the elements, because they have, okay, the fire is raging when it's umbral and it's a nice heat when it's astral. You know, it's like both have their properties and things like that. And so we're still, you know, attuned to a certain side, and that didn't change. Just the impact of that side in and of itself was different.
It would be interesting if, I don't know that we have the runway for it, right, with only really 2 patches, as opposed to like the theory that was being thrown out that this would be kind of they would start to say goodbye to 14, in which case we have many more patches because we don't have to set up for 6.0. So knowing that we're still going to be getting a 0.4, 0.5 that are meant to be the next thing tells us we're getting a 6.0 as we thought we were, but just confirmation. But like, it would be interesting if our actions so far were bringing about the end of the first. And so like, because in my mind, that's what really makes us the problem, is if this whole time we're like, all right, we've done all this good. And then we get to the end and we're like, we did so good. And then they're like, oh, we just collapsed another shard. Like that's, like we did that. It was fine. Like, I mean, could have been better, sure. But like it was there. Now it's gone.
If that doesn't then bring about Zodiark and set up that battle, you know, in that regards, and essentially I think it's that, you know, I'm not going to go to my own personal fan theory on this podcast, but as we look at just that, if we're able to do that and also at the same time preserve life, where the Ascians thought it impossible, with the exception, and what makes it really interesting is that if they messed up the 13th shard, if they couldn't find a way to fix it, they wouldn't have continued on. If that was it, like, well, we can't do it without, like, I'm wondering if there's going to be a way that we can restore the 13th, if in all of that we can figure out a way to do the rejoining without such massive genocide. Because that, like, everybody, like, when I look at it, like, that seems natural, right? Like, okay, we're all divided. We've all, like, are we all cool with that? Because if we were, we wouldn't have the Empire causing the ruckus on the source. Like if we don't, I think we have to figure out a way. We have to conclude that. And I'm wondering maybe if that's something that we do something and then Hydaelyn's like, great, you've proven yourself. Now let's do this so you can do that. Like maybe Hydaelyn was never strong enough to defeat Zodiark, so she imprisoned him until somebody could do that. And thus end, and probably have to end her in that same way.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you think we're going to get rid of Hydaelyn essentially? And then the other thing, so when I read the scribbled note on the, I actually thought of the like shadowy Ardbert, and that's who I pictured the resolve to do that, which is right, regardless of the consequence, because he is a warrior of light. Mm-hmm. He is a version of, and I feel like he's going to go in like, I'm doing what I believe is right because of whatever story we haven't come to yet.
That'd be an interesting narrative approach to kind of say that kind of as speaking to non-us in that regard. So that'll be interesting to see. What like obviously with 5.2 and 5.3, we do have 5.4. 5.4 ends up, with the exception where Blue Mage got delayed and thus it came in 5.5. It's usually the content patch in which that you get the last raid, the last 8-man raid. So that should be the conclusion of Eden. That should be sometime around FanFest. Do you think we're going to see a new limited job? Like, what do you guys want to see? That's one question. Second follow-up to that is, what do you want to see this year? Like, all in, like, doesn't matter about what has come. Like, what do you guys want when 2020 is done? You're going to look back and be like, that was amazing. Like, I'm so happy that happened. Avi.
Go ahead, Pete. Oh, I was going to Pete go, because I feel like Pete. I've been talking a lot.
I'd like them to really finish up, like, the Shadowbringer story in 5.3. And that kind of includes the Hydaelyn and Zodiark.
Yeah.
We've known them for so long that can we just wrap it up? And then I kind of wish that 6.0 is like a final confrontation with Garlemald. Like, let's get that over with too. I don't want them to just like start repeating stuff. Like, let's just go to another shard. Like, so I'd like to see a little deviation from what we got in Shadowbringers. Even though I really like Shadowbringers, I don't want it again.
I agree. I do hope that they don't make the shards essentially like the sequels. Like, that would be kind of...
Now we're going to the 8th. Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, guys, come on, new ideas here. You did such... Like, we want the new ideas. I know this is silly, but I'm still slightly salty. I would really like another healer.
This year? Like, as a limited job?
This year.
But I'm just saying, like, you're saying dream. Like, what do I want? Okay. That's my dream, which is not going to happen. But that's what I want.
What
Welcome
healer?
to FanFest. You've all been granted immediate access to the new healer.
What healer? Like
I actually really wanted Dancer to be a healer.
Oh yeah, I thought that would be fun, like an interesting twist.
Yeah, I really enjoy Dancer. I don't feel as useful. Like, the support it brings doesn't feel as useful as I wish it did.
Yeah.
So I would love to see these support classes bring more support. In general, just the way that kind of works.
Something more realistic I would like them to do in 2020 is to stop adding new forms of PvP and just focus on making on what they have good.
1,000% agree.
And like, you don't need to add a new form. All you have to do is add a new mount for people to get people to do it again.
You're right.
And just focus on...
Well, it's like, so they're like, hey, rival wings. Great. Hey, frontline. But each frontline's also different. Okay. Hey, Feast. Different things. Feast has seasons. Like, let's take... And for the majority of Final Fantasy, 14 players, they're, I would say they're aspected to PvE. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong. PvP ends up being a really great filler in PvE content. So for people who are like, well, I guess I'm going to take a break until the next patch, like, yeah, like imagine if the PvP was so, like, at least being able to kind of take some of those players off and into the content. So what do? Well, I have an idea. Let's just divide them up even further. Like, we've got a small population. Yeah. We're going to segment them, and then we're going to divide up the content, and then we're going to have them have to make their own link shells and companies and discords, so that they actually can figure out how to play together. It's like,
and then we're not going to let them talk when they get into it.
Yeah, like no communication. And so yeah, like I love PvP, and for the longest time, I have another, like, Destiny 2 has been my PvP game. What do I feel like tonight? Do I feel like I've already beat all the bosses in 14? I guess I'm gonna go play Destiny. Like, as opposed to, like, when you look at, and here's the one thing we did, and I'm curious because you like PvP but you don't like it in 14. We started running our own custom matches with one rule: no healers, and it was amazing because the feast is based off of the best healer. Like I would say 90% of the time, whoever has the better healer is the winner. And so it was like, well, we could keep trading healers, and we're just, you win, okay, then we win. It's like, this isn't fun. Nobody heals, and then it's like, you died. Oh no! And the strategy was so awesome because it shifted. Oh, guys, like,
Well, and we screwed with it further.
Yeah.
So we said you weren't allowed to play the same class 2 matches in a row.
Oh.
And so, because everybody has 2 jobs north of 30.
Mm-hmm.
And so you forcing people to switch off of their main and then forcing them to say, okay, I know Brian's playing on a class that he's not as comfortable with, so I should play on a class I am comfortable with, because otherwise we're going to get screwed because we're both running something we're not used to. And then that way I'm saving my better, like he's saving his better class for when I switch off. Like it triggered all this other strategy that, like, if you had like a best of 5 format, it's like, and everybody had to play all these different jobs.
The realization, like, when we're playing around with that I really enjoyed beyond that, though, is that if PvP is going to have its own system anyway, like, why not just go ahead and make it different? And then, like, we always kind of said, even back in Stormblood, we're like, just tell me what you need. Like, I just want to go play PvP. Do you need a healer? Do you need a tank? Do you need a ranged DPS? Do you need a melee DPS? That level of also precision in matchmaking when you're just trying to play. Like when I have to go, and it's fine if it's like, okay, it's going to be a minute between matches. Not a problem. But it's not a minute between matches. It's like 30 minutes. And that's where Eureka frustrated me. And like Stormblood, I think, was not my favorite expansion. But I was like, okay, I'm doing Eureka. You know, it'd be cool while I'm soloing in Eureka if I could be in queue for PvP. Because, like, all right, like, I'm just out here just killing things, like, until I can get a group. And, oh, man, like, it's just like, oh, but that's instance content.
I really wish there was more uninstanced content in 14 so I can queue for some stuff and have something to do other than sit at the gold saucer and play mini games.
Like the old school relic grind.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I actually that's a big thing. I miss meeting people randomly farming for Atmas and being like, hey, I like your glamour. Hey, I like yours.
Well, that's the MMO that we don't have anymore. Like, it's like, but Eureka was also kind of MMO in the sense because more people were communicating. You know,
but it wasn't your world. It was instance. Right.
Well, and then I literally was like, I was so frustrated because I'm sitting here flying around. Like I'm out in the world in Stormblood, and I'm not. I was like, I don't remember the last time I saw another player. Mm-hmm. And I was like, these zones are so beautiful. What's going on with them? And then,
but I'm alone in a massive.
You played 11, right, Avi? You played 11, right?
What?
You played 11?
Yeah.
I was like, I would love just to have like the conquest system, like just let us passively doing PvP. Like people always think PvP is like me having to kill you before you kill me. You know, PvP could be just like, we're in this zone.
Yep.
I killed more monsters than you this week. You know, like I got more points.
And ESO does one where they'll give you missions in PvP. And so like my favorite, because that game terrifies me for PvP, is I go out and I sneak and I go and I spy on a place and I get credit for gathering intel. Nice. And then I come back and I'm PvPing, but in my own little like wimpy way.
Yeah.
It's just nice to have options in the same zone, in the same area.
Chris, what do you want for 2020 and 14? Because you put out your Final Fantasy XIV as a worth it in 2020 video. And that's like, it was really one of your best videos that you've, I think you've made in the last couple of weeks. I was just like, good job. But you talk about like, is it going to be worth it this year? What do you want though? Like, because I think I would direct people to see that video. But what do you want?
I think I think that Shadowbringers is shaping up to be one of the better expansions I'll play in my whole life. I've said it a million times, but some small part of me is like, but what if they could screw it up? So like, I would like to kind of see a little bit of the roadmap just to know it's gonna land smoothly, and it's not just gonna be like it was amazing, and then out of left field, like it just totally took this weird turn. And so I would like to know kind of where that's at. And then the rest is systems things. So like I feel that crafting and gathering got gutted. And I feel that they did it to give access to people that always felt it was too much to get into and to get them in. And I don't know why they had to do it to the whole grind. I don't know why they couldn't just like gut the 1 to 50 grind because that's old content. I don't know why they had to make the current stuff so much faster. You could have gutted it to 1 to 70. But
like, all right.
Yeah, if you want to get people into Shadowbringers content, what does that have to do with tearing up the Shadowbringers content? Like just tear up everything old. And there was some quality of life in there, but Yoshi-P said over and over, like, this is just the first step to a total rework of these systems. So we're going to be adding back a new version of expert crafting but my concern with those things is, are they going to be challenging and fun because they're tied to Ishgard? And if so, what happens when we're done with Ishgard? What happens when we're in 6.0 and there is no Ishgard to rebuild? Do those systems just flounder without a city to rebuild? And so like, I have a lot of concerns for that. So I would like to see them put those systems in a place where they're healthy enough to stand on their own without a big piece of content to support them. And then other than that, everything is centered on the 5.3 ARR squish. That's something that I really want to be done in a way. The hardest part of getting people into this game right now is asking them to play through 180 or 200 hours of ARR and then another 200 hours of Heavensward, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers to get to current cap. Mm-hmm. You've got 400 hours, and the first half of it is content that, while I enjoyed the crap out of ARR then, and I ran it to the point where I was afraid my PS3 was going to die, it's not as good as Shadowbringers. And so when I tell people to get into Shadowbringers, they have to go back and play this stuff that was fun for me and it was current. Meanwhile, I'm over here in groups that are picking which raids we queue for, so they're getting stuck in queues waiting to clear things that they can't clear to run story in these zones that have no one in them. And so like, 5.3 is timed roughly around the launch of Shadowlands for World of Warcraft. And they are doing a complete rework of the leveling system to drop everybody from 120 to 60 and change it so that new players for the first time ever are A, taught how to play, and B, actually have a cohesive and decent leveling experience that is doable in a reasonable amount of time. And they're designing it in a way where it will be scalable from expansion to expansion. So when they fix it this time, assuming they get it right, it should carry on into however long they choose to run WoW. And I hope that 5.3 does that for 14, because when this becomes a 600-hour grind or an 800-hour grind or a 2,000-hour grind, and somebody decides to stop playing because they shift to another game or they shift to, I mean, we just get older, right? Brian has 12 kids. He doesn't have time to play this game anymore. Like,
by the way, my kids would be totally farming for me. Like a lot of people are like, oh, the kids are a lot of work. Like, yeah, like today. But there's a long. I'm playing the long game. I'm playing the game that, you know, like, all right, well, you hire, you know, I guess your bots. I make mine. So
I have a friend
you're grounded for 100 million
gathering for him. Oh, here, go kill these gigantoads and get those leathers for me. Back in the day, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Dude, a family that slays together stays together.
I have a question related to, because you're talking about the crafting and stuff.
Yeah, go ahead, Avi.
Do you think they're finally going to resurrect and save Diadem? Or do you think this is going to fall flat again?
Well, this time they're gearing it very specifically towards one play style. I think the problem last time was a mismanagement of expectations. So you went in with a group and not everybody was there for the same reason. Right? And so that's where the frustration was. So I think as long as it's very clear why you should be there, and they're like, I mean, in Eureka, that was almost its downfall, right? Is that like you should be there to run the train, and if you're not going to be there to run the train, you're bad at Eureka. And so, like, as long as it's that focusable, I think it'll be successful, at least to the degree Eureka was, where while 90% of the population will probably do the new diadem the first week and then never again, that 10% that does it, or whatever percentage actually did Eureka week over week over week, cherished it. There is a whole community that still runs Baldesian Arsenal today.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to do it other than that you want to. It's glamour only now.
Why is some of the most beautiful zone design locked behind these randomly instanced done, you know, places? And it's literally because of technology issue. I hope that the next version of Diadem or Eureka uses the world visit so we can actually use Party Finder, so we can have our chocobos, so we can do these things, and at the same time not have to sit here and worry about that people aren't going to do it. You know,
well, even in Eureka, how you just said there's like one thing they do, the hunt train. Well, what if they just, like I talked about the PvP option in ESO, what if there was just like daily quest givers in there and you could go in and do things only in Eureka individually? Like they just kind of like, I don't know.
Just to wildly speculate here, like let's just look back at the technology that's been added even over the last year, 2 years, that's been shown off. Ishgard Restoration, Plan A came out with World Visit. They said, this is what we believe on our numbers is the best call. They realized that Plan A was not working and hot swapped to Plan B.
Without even any downtime.
No downtime. There was no, we're going to have to take the game offline. There's no, we're going to have to screw with players' progress. There was no, we're going to have to rework it and think about it and we'll get to you in a future live letter. They said, hey, just so you know, we're watching it and we have a plan. And then they said, hey, plan's live. Like, just like that. That is an incredible move forward for a game that has such a hard time fixing old systems. B, we have the World Visit system and it works really well.
That launch for World Visit was amazing. That the fact that we don't give them more credit is a shame.
People's biggest complaint is that they can't get back to their homeworld. But you know what's great about that? In the act of going back to your homeworld, you're not, oh, well, it's going to go ahead and let you go there, and then it's going to crash your homeworld. Your problem is, well, I don't like that this game is still running stable. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's not doing it the way you wanted it to do it, but it's running and it's live and it's good. And so if you pair those with, now go back and think about Eureka. The problem with Eureka was it was run on the instance server. And the instance server has core rules that are structural. Instances expire by their very nature. So Eureka instances had to expire by their very nature. And they set the timer as long as they could, but that sucked when you got tossed into a Eureka instance and then everybody's like, well, see ya, and then it dies. That doesn't have to happen anymore. You can say there is a server that is lined. There is a server that is the diadem server, and so all world visit is you talk to an NPC somewhere in game, and it teleports you from that point in space and time to a controlled point in space and time on a different server. So now you can toss people into a diadem server that's perpetual. And so you can have daily quests there. You can have as many people as you want from an entire data center there. So you're no longer locking it behind people on a particular server. So you can,
that would be great.
I think they have a lot of tools in their belt. I don't know how they'll use them, but do I think Diadem can be successful? Yes, I believe there's nothing handcuffing them from making
but do you think
a good piece of content.
Or is it cursed?
Nothing's cursed.
Tried to resuscitate it for the third time now, I think.
Nothing's cursed. We just got Shadowbringers. How in the world can we say this game is cursed?
No, not the game. This one instance.
Yeah, call it something different. Don't call it
There
Diadem.
are haunted, hotels and stuff in the world.
No, but I like Blue Mage. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think if it fails,
I like limited jobs.
Turn it into an open world PvP zone.
Well, the thing is, I've long wished that it was just a part of the world. Just go there. My hope here's my hope for Diadem, or whatever for that is that we go talk to an NPC. Fine, if that's how they have to do it, great. What I would like to see is that Diadem, with Eureka 2.0, you just go to the zone and it just matches you. And let's say the zone can only hold 300 people. Cool. It's open world stuff. We're just going to make a new one. They already kind of have that in. I would rather that or going to an NPC and it says, yep, let's, we're going to put you into a whole new world, and it's and it has all the great stuff, but it's separate because we want to make sure the entire data center comes together. So you don't end up finding out oh, your server just doesn't do this content. One of the coolest things about the Crystal data center, it's so RP focused, not a real heavy red scene. Who cares? Just know your culture, right? And so I find that just utterly fascinating. Is it cursed?
Is it the name that's bothering you? It's a naming convention. Do you wish it had its own name to stand? It's totally separate.
Nah, people still do it. It's just they do it for gathering. I think what would be quote unquote the cursed piece of it is it was experimental content. And this is where it's so funny within the community, and I'm completely guilty of this. It's we want them to take risks, and then we effing hate them when they do. How?
No, we don't hate it when they do. We hate it if they do and then they miss.
Yeah. Well, what was the last risk? What was the last risk that they took and they nailed? That's not job specific. That's not story specific.
We were talking about this on our last podcast. We said, okay, we're down to one dungeon. You guys need to start hitting on some of the new types of content that we're getting. And really quickly, I do want to agree with, I think it was Zoella in chat. I think the new fishing content sounds way more interesting than Diadem. I'm actually legitimately excited for ocean fishing, deep sea ocean fishing boat. I just want to see what.
Oh, we're gonna be on that boat.
We're gonna get on that boat.
I know it's just gonna be more instant content, but for some reason, I'm super excited
Instance if we're together. I think one of the things that I drive and I love when my greatest memories from 1.0 to today are the moments that I've shared with people where I've made either new friends, or that I've spent running dungeons with friends. Yeah. And those are the things that keep me coming back. I want 14 to be more MMO in every aspect. And I have to come to terms with, I don't know if that's going to be what this game ends up becoming, because I honestly, hands down, believe Yoshi-P's been hard at work on whatever this next game is. And it makes complete sense. And that's not to say they're going to shut 14 down. No, that's stupid. But when you look at the technology, when you look at what it's going to take to do it in the game, every time they do it, it's a love letter to the community. Every time as they start adding hairstyles and more to Viera, that's them proposing to the community, because they're working overtime. This team at Square Enix is so in love with the community and the game, and they will do whatever they can I think if I could have any message for 2020 to the community is, don't stop voicing what you want. Just know that it might take time, because the technical debt, like, it's not the system. Like when I talk about like my love of the letter at the start of this, like how it's so important to me, how it resonates with me specifically, both as a content creator but as a fan, because that's what made me stick around. That's what made me keep podcasting. That's what said, okay, Yoshi-P, I'm in. They never knew Heaven's Word was going to exist. They had hopes, probably. They didn't know Stormblood would be here. They didn't know Shadowbringers would be here. They were trying to save the effing franchise.
Yep.
And they did. And people were like, oh, 15, like, you don't understand. 15 was already, like, that was already going on. From day one, like, wait to see 16. 16 will be the biggest telling on the cultural impact that Yoshi-P has had on the entire company of Square Enix. Personally,
I think it mirrors like Final Fantasy, the original. It was saving the company. That's why it was the Final Fantasy.
That's why it's called. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out a way. I haven't figured out a way how to make this video, but I thought, like, how awesome would it be if we institute a rule that for every Final Fantasy that has a number, you have to say "final" that many times. So it's Final Fantasy. It's Final Fantasy. It's Final Fantasy. It's Final Fantasy. I haven't figured out a way to make that video to, like, just for that joke.
Like a TikTok kind of thing.
So, you know, if I feel like getting 20, if I feel like getting 20 years younger and getting on TikTok, then by all means.
No. I don't have to do it on TikTok, but I mean the style of the clip. Like
Final.
There's something different. Like you've got the game and you're doing it. You got the next game.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and it clips and it clips and it cuts.
I don't know why I just particularly found it like ideally funny, where I was like, okay, yeah, like Final Fantasy XIV, Final, you know, and I know that somebody will be like, oh, it's an old joke that it's the Final Fantasy. It's like, no, it's just, I think it sounds funny.
It does. And then if you did it 10 times, then you did it 10 times, you go 2.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. You're exactly, yeah. So I haven't found a way to make the script funny, and that's fine. But I was just like, you know. I like it here where I like talk about all the videos that I've like got on my whiteboard of like things to make that I haven't figured out how to make. So you know, back on topic though, I don't know if that item's cursed. People still did it, you know. It breaks my heart in a way. Like when you talk about the airships, when you talk about submarine, like there's all these systems that were kind of like hopeful. And you know what, like, yeah, people are they're gonna miss. And the concern is, they're not going to take risks because of the failure 1.0. But I personally am of the belief that, like, Final Fantasy XIV, it's going to be that great Final Fantasy game. And if they can keep knocking the story out, if they can keep improving the game, great. I'm going to play it. I'm excited about it. I think Yoshi-P, beyond anybody else, deserves the opportunity to make his game. You know?
I agree.
I think he deserves the opportunity to make his game, not try to save this game, not fit this all. Like, what does Yoshi-P want to make? And when he's showing off that screen, like the art for his 2016 project, I go, I'm in, baby. Like, you're making it. I hope it's successful. And I think that's why it's even more important today to voice our feedback, because if they can't do it right away, they can at least start to understand what 5 years and 10 years into whatever this next like project they're working on might look like it if it is in fact an MMO.
And they listen to us. I mean, just with the loss of the butts, the 2B butts, you know, people complained, like, you took our butts away, finally got butts, and you took our butts away, and then right away they fixed it. They're like, okay, well, undo the thing that you didn't like, and here's the butt back.
The butts in 1.0 were so good.
Oh, I'm jealous. I hate all the flat butts in this game.
You know, and then you think about it, like, that was a promise to make to get the system on PS3, and they're like, oh, well, just get rid of those assets. It's like, okay, like, do you...
Not those assets.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like the pipeline for the graphics to go and do a lot of the work. It's like, and that's where business sucks, because it's like the art of it I think they should do it. The business justification, it's like, okay, well, or we could make this brand new game and make the best asses you've ever seen in digital.
You look at the butt so much more than the front.
You're a butt girl, right? Like
I'd rather have little tiny boobs and a really big booty. Like that was when I made my first. I keep going to ESO. I'm sorry, it's the other game I play.
You're good.
I was like, I get a booty. Like she had the biggest booty ever, just because I could, and I was like overcompensating for the Final Fantasy XIV butts. And I like that.
Yeah.
I would like that option actually, even with the characters to, if you don't just make the butts bigger, give us the opportunity to make more representation in body types. Like I would love, and that would totally redo the way the character creation is done. And I get that, but I do think
as a glamour junkie, just know you would lose all kinds of things rolling something like that out.
I think you'll have to wait
if
for
you think gear
MMO.
has fitting issues now. Start changing the shape of every single character to a unique combination of waist, thigh.
Yeah. Well, I think
it's not.
I think the best. I think to help build a better and healthier community, and somebody called me a defeatist, which was fun. I was like, I'm not. Like, I'm the guy who's literally been talking about this for years, and everybody's like, you're just hating on the game. I'm like, I'm just trying to educate people so that they can hopefully set the right expectation for what this is and for what it can be and what it, might be. I'm not going to say it won't be, but it's like, like you have to kind of lane certain things. And Zoe was saying about PSO2. Yeah, hands down. Like that game's a freaking incredible. So it's like, that's what I've been playing. So you've been playing ESO. For me, it's like I've been bouncing between 14 and PSO2. Mwah, that's so freaking good. But I'm like,
so why we didn't get the Vieira feat. And I get it.
Right.
Because of the gear.
Well, and it's so, like, when you think about it, like, and I've spoken to this, and it's like, I beat that drum. Like, I do this. I do this for a living. I make these systems come to life. Mm-hmm. And when somebody comes in, not just at the 11th hour, somebody's like, this system's been running and stable. I want you to go into its foundation, and I want you to make a change. The thing that just my heart goes into my throat. Because it's like, because they think like, and it's always this is how, as a developer, feedback is approached to me. Hey, oh God, can you do this thing? I know it's going to be difficult. That is the literal easiest thing to do. Like the thing that people are like, I bet that's so difficult. Can you? Oh no, we actually designed the application for that, and so we can do that. How long is it going to take? It's actually already done. By you asking me, I went and just boom, you're done because we're good. Hey, I know this is really easy. Can you do this? Well, unfortunately, I have to go into the plumbing of this whole system. We have to test that plumbing because I work in healthcare and logistics. I have to make sure that it's certifiably secure, and then I can roll it out to you. When you think of 14, like, oh, that'd be easy. Well, we do have your credit card information. We actually messed up, and now everybody on the internet has it. Like, there are things that a business has to take into account that they have to test, and we want them to. You don't want your money just out there on the internet. Like, like a subscription fee small. Like I've seen these companies that aren't 14, that aren't Square Enix, that bill people. Like some guy got charged $2,000 from the company because of like an error in their system. No. We want them to take their time and get it right, and we want it we want it faster and things like that. So I want to like, I know we're over time, and I'm loving this conversation, and I want to take a moment to talk about what I want in 2020.
Okay.
I'm torn between Beastmaster and Puppet Master. I love the limited system, but I want more reasons to do things in the open world. If I could sit here and say, Yoshi-P, this is the gift you give Brian in 2020, it would be glamour levels. And I'm calling them glamour levels because I hate when XP is worthless. I hate when I get a challenge log complete and I'm on a level cap character and I'm like, fudge. It's like, it hurts me to the core. And I say glamour levels because in my mind, like when you talk about Paragon and you talk about merits points from 11, like I don't like the raid community would lose their mind if you had to go and like grind out XP just to be raid ready. No, they're not going to want that. And I don't think the game makes sense to that. That would be such a shift in the culture and the mindset of what 14 is. So But do I want that? Absolutely. Like, I would love to see like merit points make their way in, but I'm trying to think within context of not asking for too much. But if I could still get XP on my job and like just like, hey, I'm 81. I mean, or now I'm +1, +2, and just so that like as I play that job, like it like yeah, I've gotten that XP and it's cool. And every time I level up, like here's a little present, Brian. You know, here's a little gift of like some tomes and some maybe some glam. Like it doesn't have to be anything set, or you could tie some achievements behind it if you really wanted to. And then all of a sudden, as a
like
tank,
a box of loot.
Oh yeah, well it's a loot box is literally just a treasure chest, and then
the achievements in Gridania, we don't get those really anymore.
Right.
That would be something they could tie. You just go talk to what's his face over by
the master of knowledge or scrolls or whatever he's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the keeper of rules. The no, I love, and I would love that because like one of the things that we've done with the channel is people keep asking for controller guides, and like okay, I level. And I think they wish I could do that faster. And I wish I could do that faster. My wife wishes I could do it slower. She's like, no, like, but at the same time, she's like, yeah, like she gives me the opportunity to do it. She used to play with me. So she always like would make sure I had her controller guide out first. She's like,
I see how it works.
Yeah.
You good man. That's
hands
how
down,
it works.
hands down. Well, she's hopefully going to be coming back. Our PS4 died. Games coming out for Xbox this year. Like literally, like if you asked me prior to that knowledge, like Xbox, it's always my answer every year. Can we get this on the FNF by Xbox? I don't care. Like I don't care about your stupid console wars. I like all consoles.
Do you think it will be coming this year?
It is coming this year.
Did they? I didn't hear that. I know they said that
they don't have a date. My thought is that's the announcement at E3. Well,
yeah, I don't think
Chris thinks it's Scarlet, and that's fine. I
don't think
it's
it'll be until the new console, so maybe really, really late 2020.
Yeah, I still think that's a perfect thing to be like, and E3, and because Scarlet is forwards and backwards compatible, so it's like, all right. But I mean, I could be wrong. Like, I don't have inside knowledge. What I do know is it's been running on the Xbox for the last 8 months. So let's just make it happen, people.
I think at the next FanFest, if they announced like when it's coming to the Xbox, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah,
like announce the expansion and that
in North America, where Xbox is really the only place that people have Xboxes. Yeah, perfect. I'd also like to see it on Stadia. Like I personally would like that. I love the speed of that system, and it doesn't work for Chris, but it works for me. And I'm like, all right, it's going to be interesting technology.
It's a complete recode.
Oh yeah, it's on Linux. Stadia is based. Yeah,
the Stadia is its own custom thing. That's what allows it to do the things it does, but it's a rewrite of a game.
Yeah. So, but my pie in the sky, my thing that I wish for more than anything else is that if I'm a level 80 Dark Knight, I would totally run leveling roulettes on Dark Knight every day if it was some stupid glamour level thing. Like it's just this weird thing. Like whenever XP becomes whenever XP has value, I get a lot of value out of the game. I love the currency XP. I don't know why. I'm weird. But
you run it once and you get it, but there's no reason to run it again.
Why? And then people are like, "Oh, you get tomes, like 5? Like F that."
That's not really well, but it's worth it if you're leveling a character, but not on your max level.
Oh, right. And then it's like, okay, and especially, and the problem is that the 5. I used to run it for 5 because I didn't actually level all the jobs because I only leveled tanks, healers, and casters. Like literally, it's all I did.
Is that all?
That's all. I'm a tank, healer, caster.
That's all.
I love them. And then with the channel, people are like, do melee. And I'm like, okay, I'll, so I weave that in now. And there's longer gaps whenever I'm doing melee. Cause it's just not who I am as a gamer, and that's okay. But for some reason, I'm able to put an interesting perspective on it, and people find it helpful. And like when people ask us what Work to Game is, we're an education channel. It's like, I want you to enjoy your time with the game. And I don't want you to do exactly everything I do. I want to hopefully show you things that are possible, and whether you do what I do or you take it and you run with it, that makes me happy. I want everybody to experience 14 because I think that they deserve it. I don't want everybody doesn't have to love the game the way I love the game, but I want them to at least try it. And so we're always trying to push that free trial, and we have some fun stats. Like we've brought in this year, I think 5,000 people to the game.
Wow, that's so cool.
So it's like cool. I don't know. We don't know if they stick around or stay, but it's like that's like my goal. Like my goal is,
that's just from our link.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's awesome, you guys. You should be proud of that, by the way.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like I love this game. I love this community, and so from a practical side of this, like when I look at it, when I like, Avi, I think you and I are in the same boat. Like, I'm leveling these additional jobs for the community. Mm-hmm. That's what puts me and makes me play. Mm-hmm. I'm playing this game for the story. Yeah. Right now. Like,
I'm the exact same way.
You know, it's like I've done my tanks, I've done my healers. Like, I haven't done all the tanks because Chris has half of them. We did a draft. But it's like, I love my Paladin. I love my Dark Knight. I hate my Summoner. I used to be Summoner all the way.
Oh, Heaven's Word Summoner.
And 6.0, like, if you're asking me what I want for 6.0, I want a healer, I want a caster, and I want to rework a Summoner.
Oh my God. Heaven's Word Summoner was my favorite job in the entire game. Like, that's the only job that fully took me away from healing. I loved it. Yeah. I loved everything about it. And I
did. And now I don't. Well, pets don't seem and it's with the fact that, like, my critique of Summoner is, since my pets don't matter, I mean, they do. Like, you can, like, oh, wait, we're going to get a hit. Like, we're struggling in defense. I might as well do Titan.
Yeah.
It's a DPS loss, but it's a bigger DPS loss if people are dead. You know, so it's like, you know, okay, like, I'm a team player. I never cared about my personal DPS. I care about my team DPS, hands down. Same thing in
no, I was selfish with my Summoner. I was like, boom.
Well, that's why I win more PvP matches than I think anybody else. Like, when you look at, like, my KDA, not as great. Mm-hmm. My accuracy could definitely be better. I'm working on that. My win percentage is pretty high, and it is high because I'll pair myself up with somebody who's more accurate than I am. Yeah. And I'll take the hits, so that way we win. You know, it's like that's how I view team games. Like, it's like, well, if I'm on fire, like, I hope that somebody takes the hits for me, because then it's like, it's just it's the whole thing. So, like, when I look at DPS, I look at team DPS. I don't care about I look at assists. Like, if I was running a team, like a professional team, and if like in a, like, let's say a 4v4, like Halo 50, point match. If I don't see, like, assist 10 plus, like, that would be like, you got to go run a lap. That would be my coaching style. Like, you better all be hitting the targets. Yeah. Everybody should be
PvP as much as you do. I actually did a lot of, like, raiding and stuff when I did Summoner.
Yeah.
And what I also loved about it is that you had that res ability. And I think that if they gave something like that to Black Mage, because Black Mage is the most selfish class in the game. Or left Black Mage with the ability to be a mana battery, and they're the only class job that got to keep that, because that's what they are.
Yeah.
They need to offer some sort of support element to the party. I don't like Black Mage because, one, I'm a caster, and
casters are the best. Anybody who thinks that casters suck, whatever. You guys are, your leaves, your green leaves. What do you call them earlier? Like your event that you run with your friend.
Oh, the green leaf?
The green leaves, yeah. A bunch of green leaves out there. Casters. I love casters.
I do too. I'm a scholar is my healer of choice. So
I actually really have enjoyed Scholar. Like, I wish we had Bane, not as much as maybe all the other scholars. Honestly, I would have taken Shadow Flare.
I love Art of War. Art of War is so fun. It's like, hit the ground. I love that. I actually don't miss Bane because of that. I'm really glad that the community complained about the loss of energy drain.
Yeah,
because that changed the way the class played. So that, and, like, the butts, like we're saying, like, they listen to us. They understand. Oh, yeah. Like, it's. If
you're gonna say, like, why you should play Final Fantasy XIV, it's like the devs listen. Doesn't mean you're going to get the answer you want, but they're not going to write you off. They're going to take that feedback. Yeah, and they're going to take that feedback. And that's actually kind of the thing, because sometimes the answer is no, and it's for a reason, because, like, what you're asking for, you're going to hate the result. It's like, my kids want candy all the time. Literally, the only reason, like, they get out of bed. It's like, candy. I have an opportunity for candy. If I fed them candy all the time, I'm a bad parent.
They'd be sick.
They would be sick, and they would want, and they, what they want? Candy. And it's that, and I'm not sitting here saying that what gamers don't know what they want, but it's that sometimes, when you have to look 6 months, 9 months, 2 years down the road. Like, okay, great, I can feed you all that, but in 2 years, like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? So it's really interesting. Ultimately, we'll have to see. It's also hard to listen to millions of players. So, like, I think they are able to quantify the data and the emotion behind it. I always, as a developer myself, I listen to what the root request is. We might be saying
as a developer.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And this is a Pete issue. Why don't we have a beta server?
Test server.
Right.
Server.
Just keep the story off of there. Like when you're adding a new PvP, throw it up there.
Jobs.
Like I hate that we have so many minor PvP events because they just can't get PvP.
But what else goes on there? So like you can't put the trial fight on there because you can't have. I mean, you can't have the abilities. You can't have.
I know the answer from my perspective, especially talking with Yoshi-P. I don't have an official statement, but I can give you an answer.
Go ahead.
It wasn't designed for it, and design at the root of this thing is 100%. I mean, like I can't just go like, okay, like if I don't design my applications to have a test environment.
Would you ever do that though?
What was 3.0 ever going to happen? Like
I don't know. But
they were trying to save a franchise. Like they don't like that's like when you start to look at the backlog, you gonna like, and the fact that they pulled this around in 2 years, from 1.0 to 2.0, while keeping 1.0 relevant, while running a minimal budget, because they've already burned so much money. Square Enix was going under. Like they permanently damaged Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Yoshi-P pulled off the miracle of the decade. Like, whether he can do it again, whether his next project is a successor or not, we don't know if he's got that skill. But we do know he's got the skill to do what he did. And when he cried at the thing, you know nobody else worked as fucking hard as this guy did.
No.
You know, and it's like, I have so much respect. I'm rooting for him completely. Hands down, end of the day, like, we can sit here and be like, oh, it'd be great if 14 would do this. Yoshi-P would say the same thing, but you have to like to do what he did from a technological and a deliverable perspective. It should be studied in universities to figure out how the hell they did it.
Wow.
Hands down.
Well, if you look at healthier games, like if you look at a technical cycle, right? Like a healthier game that has all the features you guys have asked for tonight in some form or fashion is World of Warcraft. It has a test environment. It has a better PvP mode. It has the ability to toss people to servers seamlessly with their sharding system. It has a ton of these systems. That's not to say it doesn't have its own separate set of problems, but a lot of the problems in 14, the things we wish were different, those things are technologically superior in WoW, and then they just have a different set of problems instead.
But they also have like a budget like what that's like 25 times that of 14. Yoshi-P has many times said, massive. I wish I had that budget. Because then he could bring that kind of level. And then the question is why doesn't why doesn't he have that budget? You know, and the reason would be
60 million players.
Yeah. Well, it's not just the player base, because when you look at 14 running across multiple environments, you got to also look at the hands down future of what's happening. I think that when you look at the engine, when you look at the things, when you look at the multiple games that Square Enix is now developing on Unreal Engine, and people were like, well, why didn't they just start on Unreal? Well, actually, it was an issue that there was no translation really for Unreal. Like, Unreal, Japanese development and their adoption of the Unreal Engine has namely been because they didn't have the ability to do that. But now you've been seeing that, and there's been really great success. When you talk about Octopath Traveler, when you talk about Bravely Default, when you talk about, was Nier in Unreal? Like, I don't remember, but I'm saying, like, there's been many, many games, and more games that they've been building on Unreal have been really critically received, and we're going to see that, I think. And the question is that will the next Final Fantasy game actually be built in Unreal or in some in-house engine in which the Square Enix themselves says, you know, it has its own struggles, and in training, you know. So look at like EA, and they have you know, their dice, their Frostbite. Well, one of the problems with that is that most of the industry is trained up on Unreal. So when you go into that environment, it ends up being a big learning curve. So somebody like a developer, if I hire you, and I've hired some people recently to work in development, and I'm not going to share their names, but you all know who they are. And so we have to train you. The best, if I hired the most genius person, engineer, it's still 90 days. It's still 3 months at a minimum before they have any value to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like now you take this onto custom, but all of a sudden you start shifting to Unreal, and you hire this guy, and he's like, I've been working on Unreal with this other company. They're hitting the road much faster, and so we're going to see that happening over the next decade as well. Anyway,
and I had a question for you, not necessarily 2020,
sorry,
but
this is like 4 claws in. I'm like really honest.
We hit on something that I had a couple ideas about. You mentioned you were still playing this mainly because of the story.
Oh, I love this story.
So I was wondering, how important is like all of the new zones to an expansion for you?
I wish that there was more, like with Shadowbringers and the fact that we get currency from fates and then
Like,
you level up the fates more.
I was thinking just the quantity. Like if they cut the new zones in half, but say we brought the story back to the source and we're going into Garlemald, but what if they gave us like half the new zones and then they revamp the original? We have a lot more quests, because I feel like we get a new expansion and then we hardly ever revisit the old zones.
I would love that.
Let's reuse some of these assets. Let's put some new stories. Let's have new stories with Nanimo again. Like
I would love that. Actually, I would. Like if we got 3 new zones and now they said all of these older zones we've made bigger. You can actually swim, and we've gotten these hidden things that now like you want to go through Stormblood so you can actually learn how to dive under the water. Like I'd be cool with that. I've always thought like how cool would it be that if like in an old zone that there was an area that you could only get to by flying, and that's why we technically haven't gone to that spot yet. Mm-hmm. That would be pretty cool. The question though is, how did that come to be? And my hope, and that's why I'm a secret Asian. I'm rooting for the freaking like Calamity, so that they could kind of be a reason to say, and now you have this, and now the main cities are no longer divided. When you look at Kagane and you look at the Crystal Tower, and heck, you even look at Ulmor. Ulmor has its areas, but it's like, oh man, everybody's there. I want to see people, and if they were able to sit here and like, I look at more the trust system. I look at more like I wish at a core base of the game, when you look at it, like just we'll say trusts. I wish they were open world. I wish monsters in the open world could kill you. Yeah. And thus you the solution to not having friends or people or like you don't want to wait in town because you're afraid to go outside would be trusts. That would be the removal of downtime. But then you're like, well, let me just go ahead and actually team up with my friends. I think that overall builds a better community. I think when you look at MMOs over the last decade, they've made mistakes. Like I think that like you look at 14 and people bemoan BFA, and this may be my most controversial statement. People say that I hate it. Like 14's on the same trajectory. It's following the same plan that BFA followed, and eventually people are going to be upset about it. Shadowlands is actually probably the most intriguing expansion this year on the heels of Classic. People want to play MMOs together. Mm-hmm. People want, and then we kept asking for them to make that easier. And then all of a sudden we wake up and we're like, why am I playing a single player game in an online world? Yeah. Why do I feel disconnected from this? And that, anyway.
Well, and the way
I think they wanted to cater to everyone. That's basically what it did. They wanted to be able to cater to the people who do want to play through as a single JRPG, right. Basically.
But like we said at the top of the show, AI and trust can solve that problem for that individual and not punish the rest of the community for it.
Yeah.
It's
but looking as WoW as the harbinger, like that was the point I was getting to earlier, was that you when you look at somebody who has more resources and has had more players for more years, yes, Shadowbringers had its moment right before Classic where it may have been bigger than WoW, but when you look at over the last decade, WoW has had an immense amount of resources thrown at it, and it's just allowed them to take bigger risks and have more dev resources. And you look at, even then, they went to go make Classic. It wasn't easy. People are like, oh, well, there was already a private server running. Yeah, but a private server, if there was an exploit, it wasn't a problem. They didn't have your credit card information. They didn't have to worry about hacks. They didn't have to worry about dupes, because if those things existed, it didn't matter. But now that it's going to be released under the Battle.net launcher, like that stuff all has to be fixed. It's not that simple. And they didn't save the old code, because who writes a game and goes, in 15 years, people are going to want to play through this content again? Like, who does that? So they didn't have a lot of it. And
we all know now that is fact. Yeah.
And people, and so talking about the trajectory, like using them as that thing, you do see a lot of those same hallmarks in 14. You do see, wouldn't it be cool if we went back and added flying to old zones and replayed through those stories? And we could have a nice big cataclysmic event to trigger flying in old zones and mess with old cities. WoW did that. Like all of these things, there is a roadmap to where they go, and some of them end in good places and some of them don't. And like the dungeon finder system, the party finder system, whatever, in every game, allowing you to make players anonymous, allowing you to make it to where, like, if I don't like the way you play, I can just kick you from my group and find somebody else, is ultimately what makes these games feel
and then with 14, a number of the people who comment and bring up concerns is say it's easier for them just to kick or to abandon and then kick than to actually like say, hey, you might want to do this, because they could get flagged and reported as harassment now. And so that's essentially the strategy that a lot of people have, at least that in our comment section, is saying.
That's a bit overblown.
I'm just telling you what I am hearing.
No, but that's a lazy Me Too approach. I can't talk to women now because I'm afraid I'm going to get called out for being sexually harassing them. There's a way to approach people and not be condescending and not be mean about it.
I 100% agree. I'm going to tell you though, the first job I ever had basically summarized sexual harassment as to never talk to women. Like it was like, don't compliment them. Don't say anything to them. If you see them, go into the another room. Like, and it was like
the Mike Pence approach.
Well, Mike Pence approach or not, like that's literally the fear that companies have from this. And the, like, as a company owner, the insurance risk, like all it is numbers and math to some people. It's not about humans. And that's like a whole other topic. And this is our longest running podcast episode ever. Episode 50. Yeah. Like we're going to fix sexual harassment in the next episode.
Not necessarily for those reasons, but I hate people like abandoning just because they don't want to teach a new person a mechanic.
I 100% agree.
That is 100% the most annoying thing for
as
me.
an educator. It drives me that breaks my heart, because I have always like I have to. My thought is like maybe like figure out like, because like I have a friend and he told me this like in confidence. I'm not going to say his name or whatever, but he said he was frustrated with his wife and he said, I've told her 50 times X and she still does it. I go, you're telling her wrong. Change how you're speaking to her. And because she's not received, like you're telling me you've told her 50 times, like she's not hearing you. There's a translation error. I don't know. Change how you approach the situation, and it might work better for you, and you both will be happier. Like, stop, like, you know, I did the same thing 50 times. It didn't work.
Isn't that a sign of insanity?
Yeah. Like, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And
just say it louder. That's what I do.
That's what he does.
Well, and it's slower. Louder and slower. Well, like, if anybody, like, from a relationship thing, like, we're all married here on this podcast. One of the things I've learned through marriage is that despite speaking English, we don't speak the same language.
Very true.
And I always view it from a coding perspective. I go, we need a better interface. Like, we need a better interface on some of these concepts, because when I say X, you hear Y, and I can't change that. And I don't want, like, the idea is that I can change how you perceive it. And that's, no. Like, okay, I need to understand how you perceive it. So from an educator perspective, like, we need to figure out how to better change our approach. And my philosophy, right or wrong, you know, like, this is airing on my channel. I'm right, everybody. No, like, the mistake is that you assume you're right. I believe that the educational approach should be invitational, because otherwise it's like, it's going to be met with like, you know, who I sub. Like, no, hey, like, I'm open. Like, if anybody wants to know anything, I'll share what I know. And some people that works for, some personalities that doesn't. Like, that's just the reality. Like, we are a very diverse, culture. We're a very diverse, human nature itself. But the funniest thing to me is that, like, guys, we don't, like, just the fact that we speak a language labeled English, like, nobody's speaking the same language. Our history, our culture, or the way we're raised, what we believe, what we don't believe, what we like, all of that's going to interpret things in your words. And I'm trying to be more careful of that in 2020. But we'll see what happens. I am known to really piss people off, and I'm always like, why are they mad? Like, they're literally saying what I said.
That doesn't sound like my husband at all.
Like, huh. Anyway, marriage advice. This is why people come to the Casually Hardcore podcast. Video games and marriage conversation.
Hey, we're a married podcast.
Yeah, it's so great that you guys play games together. Like, that's honestly like one of the coolest things about your podcast. Because I think for anybody who's like, the thing that breaks my heart is like when people are like, oh, my wife doesn't like video games. It's like, oh, that's gonna be rough.
I get the question a lot. How do I get my wife to play 14?
I get that all the time.
Like, yeah, that's usually I talk about the different elements of the game that I like and try to.
You find other games that they enjoy.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I just downloaded it.
My wife doesn't play that many video games, and then Nintendo came out with this thing called the Switch, and she can't put it down. Like, you just have to find that thing that you can share, and it can be a compromise. And like, I love my Switch, but it's not an MMO, and it doesn't really support MMOs. Like, it's not 14, it's not WoW, it's not ESO, it's not like these games that I can go dump thousands of hours to. But it's a nice bridge between where I'm at and where she's at.
Yeah, my wife actually likes 14. I got her playing 11, and she wasn't a gamer, and it all became down to just inviting her. Like, I was like, hey, hang out with me, and we'll throw on a podcast or listen to some music, and I'm gonna go do this thing in this game. And she was like, hey, can I make my own character? And it's like, sure. And it's like, it was just like, I'd never pressured. I was always just like open. Like, you can, if you got a question, I'll explain it. Like, but I'm not gonna assume. My advice, like the last bit, and then we'll wrap up the show, and then we could do Q&A or whatever. Like, I just need to go to the restroom.
I do too.
Yeah. Too many claws for me. I'm like, all right. But my last thing was always like, for content creators, people who are assuming or who are thinking like, oh, I would like to make a video. Like, Pete, you said it best when you're like, just do it. Like, just start. The other thing is, stop assuming what other people do. They don't. And some people do. And honestly, you'll get a lot of elitists coming in telling you you're an idiot. Just cut that out. Like, if somebody's not giving you constructive feedback, don't worry about it. They're telling you you're an idiot. Just ignore it. If everybody's telling you an idiot, well, maybe, like, I don't know, figure that out. But it's like a lot of the things is like, there's so many things that we assume that everybody has the same knowledge and experience we do. We don't. And you have a unique perspective. You're a unique individual. As long as it's not causing you mental health issues, as long as it's not causing you stress or depression, which it can, we've talked about that multiple times, consider it. I think 14, especially 14, could use with more content creators making more content. And I don't care if you make controller guides, please make controller guides. Like, I don't care. Like, do it. Like, I love this game more than I care about a view. 100% of the time. And honestly, you're making a video would actually give me more views. That's just how YouTube works.
Is there specific types of content you would like to see more of specifically?
I would love to see more people do lore videos. I love making lore videos. They take a lot of time. They do. They just take a lot of time. I have a lot of ingrained knowledge about the lore, but I want to make sure that if I'm going to tell somebody about what's going on in the story, that I speak to it correctly, because I don't want to influence people incorrectly. I love to see lore, like everybody too. But I would just love to see more I love to see more content. I'd love for YouTube to recommend me more videos. Hands down. I don't care what it is.
Pete's been wanting to make more YouTube content stuff. That's something he wants to try to know about.
Gotta evolve.
Yeah.
You should. In fact, like from a streaming perspective, podcast perspective, just make stuff, see what works, see what you actually enjoy making. That's my tip, etc. Chili, go make a controller guide for Monk, because it's going to be a while for me.
I would like to see controller guides, actually.
I wish we had a Bellular.
Yeah, like a Bellular. Oh, Mione would be my closest thing to Bellular, and the thing that he does that I don't know if people realize the amount of effort he goes to actually publishing. His internet is hopefully going to get better, and that's going to make it easier. But that guy is a freaking all-star. You should all go sub to Mione. Hands down, let's see if we can't get him to 100,000 subs this year alone. I
actually remember when he first started, and he was one of our we just discovered this new guy, and to see him from that to I'm so proud of you and all the work he's put in.
He was really hurt by not getting invited to the media tour because in Europe they made it website only, which was stupid. Yeah, and so hopefully they don't do that again to him, in that regard. So, like he's literally, I think, one of the hardest working content creators probably on the platform. Yeah. He deserves.
I believe he has to leave his house to go publish.
He does have to leave his house to publish.
He has to park in a parking lot where he can get better cell reception. And so he drives to a parking lot and he sits in his car and uses his cell phone data plan specifically for his YouTube channel and burns data and waits however many hours that takes to upload.
That's dedication.
Yeah, Chili, you're probably right. It probably was magazine because I don't think PSU got it.
I upload it in my office while I watch Netflix in the other room, and it's still too hard.
Yeah. We got fiber.
Yeah, so I'm on gig. I'm on gig internet, so
he'll put out 5 videos in a day.
Yeah, he does a lot.
Well, he works hard. Like there's things he wants to. Anyway, I have so much love for the people who put themselves out there because it's not easy. Because everybody, there's going to be people who are going to tell you to stop. And my advice is, unless it's constructive, don't listen to it. Just make what your best stuff and be happy.
And it is hard to not listen to it because for about every dozen good compliments you get, it's that one hard one that sticks.
Well, and everybody's like, it's the same reason why negative videos do better than positive videos. A negative comment will draw your attention easier than all the people singing your praises. Beware of all the people singing your praises too. You could easily, the social media in and of itself is easily surrounded in echo chamber style content. I'm amazing. Don't get an ego. Just put out beauty in the world for Brian, for his claws, for his white claws. Let's go, people. Let's go ahead and wrap the show. Honestly, if you guys feel like chatting some more and doing Q&A with the chat, I am game. I'm not gonna, no pressure. I don't have anything else to do tonight. And I might get some more claws. So who knows what I'll say. Chris, why don't you? Actually, sorry. I was scrolled too far in the thing. Guys, Avi, Pete, where can people find you?
Well, we're at She Heals on iTank on basically all the social media stuff, Twitter, Facebook. One of the best things that's come from doing the podcast is having our own little community on Discord as well. We have a lot of people there, and we're talking about it's annoying when people leave instead of teaching. That's why we do the Greenleaf Minute on our podcast every week, because 90% of the people might know what we're talking about that week, but there's going to be 10% of people that either just started playing or just didn't know what we're talking about that week. And that's why we like to do it. We like to help out new players, or maybe you've been playing for 5 years and you just didn't happen to know that one thing. And that's what we love.
Yeah.
And for anyone looking to start content creation, the community that evolves from it is the most rewarding part for me. And I think probably most people, content creators, would agree with that as well.
Yeah.
At least the ones I've talked to anyways.
I love that you use the word community. I hate when they call us influencers. I hate when they call it an audience. It just is no, it's not what this is. And that's just my thing. So I love the fact that you guys view it as a community, because that's why you're successful. That's why I listen to you. That's why I think you guys are what I would consider some of the best content creators from a podcast in the 14 space that I've seen so far. Much. So I told Chris before the show, before y'all joined in, it's the best time. So especially when I travel, I'm all right, just get caught up on and she all right, I got 5 that I'm listening to, just one after the other. So it's it's really you guys produce a great product. Avi, do you have any any final thoughts before I let Chris?
If you do want to join our Discord, you can get the link to that on our Twitter, as well as our website, which is shehealsitank.com. And we do read out your tweets. So if you tweet anything to us at the end of our podcast, we do pick and Pete has my least favorite segment of all time, the tweet of the week, where he picks his favorite and says why. And it's a lot of fun. So yeah. And also, if you know of any content creators that you want to give a shout out, please reach out to us and let us know, because we're always looking to find new people so we can share them with everybody.
We do a community roundup every week. So we try to find another Final Fantasy XIV content creator to shout out every week. And the first episode of every month, we have open phone lines, so you can call and plug whatever you have going on. So.
All right. Chris, can you lead us out? Because I really do.
Me too. It'd be so bad.
Just like, okay.
Guys, it's been a wonderful episode 50. Thank you guys so much for 50 episodes with us. We have a lot of plans for what we want to do with the podcast this year. We're looking forward to sharing with them. Ryan and I have shared a lot about what we have planned for the channel. It's a lot this year. Thank you both for coming on. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and wrap this show up. Be sure to let us know if you made it this far. If you made it this far and you're on YouTube, put something in the comments. Do you guys have a phrase they can put?
Shit.
Yeah, exactly. Do it. All right.
All right. Do it.
I made it to the end of this.
I made it to the end of this shit.
There it is. There's the phrase.
For work to game. My name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
My name's Avi.
And I'm Vegan Pete.
Yes. Oh, that's the foursome that we've done with that lead out. Thank you guys. Thanks for everybody in chat. Of course, our last show was with Taylor Scroll. Next week we got Rook from Bird of Chess coming on the podcast. Also a fantastic creator. She is amazing. Looking forward for that. But for work to game, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.